At her birthday party, the CEO grabbed single dad's arm and said, "Act like my fiancé tonight." The music was loud, the lights were bright, and hundreds of important people had gathered to celebrate the CEO's birthday. Everyone was smiling, laughing, and raising expensive glasses. But then, in the middle of the party, the powerful CEO suddenly grabbed the arm of a tired-looking single dad who had been working there as a waiter. "Act like my fiancé tonight," she whispered. The man froze. He had no idea why the richest woman in the room had chosen him. But before the night was over, everyone at that party would learn a lesson about kindness that money could never buy. Before we begin this emotional story, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to you. Daniel had never imagined that his ordinary life would lead him into a room filled with millionaires. He was 38 years old and raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone. His wife had passed away several years earlier after a long illness. Since then, Daniel had worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. During the day, he repaired air conditioners. At night, he sometimes worked as a waiter at private events. He was always tired, but he never complained in front of Lily. Every morning, he prepared her breakfast. Every night, he helped her with homework. And whenever she asked if he was tired, he smiled and said, "I'm okay, sweetheart." But Daniel wasn't always okay. Some nights, after Lily fell asleep, he would sit alone at the kitchen table and quietly look at the bills. Rent. Electricity. School expenses. Medicine. There was always something. Still, Daniel believed that as long as Lily felt loved, they would be all right. That evening, Daniel was working at a huge birthday celebration for Victoria Hart, the CEO of Hartwell Industries. Victoria was famous. She was powerful, successful, and extremely wealthy. Her birthday party was being held in the grand ballroom of a luxury hotel. Daniel had been told to serve drinks and make sure the guests had everything they needed. He kept his head down and worked quietly. Then he noticed Victoria standing alone near the entrance. She was surrounded by people, but she looked lonely. Everyone wanted something from her. Business partners wanted contracts. Friends wanted attention. Relatives wanted favors. Even on her birthday, nobody seemed interested in asking how she actually felt. Daniel walked past her carrying a tray. For a moment, Victoria looked directly at him. Then something unexpected happened. One of the guests walked toward Victoria. It was her uncle, Richard. He was a wealthy businessman who had never respected her. "Victoria," he said loudly, "I hope this year you finally start acting like a serious woman." The people nearby became quiet. Victoria forced a smile. Richard continued. "You're nearly 40, and you're still unmarried. How embarrassing. Everyone is wondering who will stand beside you when you finally realize that money can't buy happiness." A few guests laughed nervously. Victoria's face changed. Daniel saw the pain in her eyes. He had no idea why, but he felt sorry for her. As he walked away, he heard Richard say, "At least find someone to pretend to love you for one night." Victoria looked around. Then her eyes landed on Daniel. Before he could react, she hurried toward him. She grabbed his arm. "Act like my fiancé tonight," she whispered. Daniel stared at her. "I'm sorry." "Please," Victoria said quietly. "Just for tonight." Daniel looked around. Her uncle was watching. So were dozens of guests. Victoria's hand was still on his arm. Daniel lowered his voice. "Miss Hart, I think you've chosen the wrong person." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I chose you." Daniel was confused. Victoria leaned closer. "I saw you earlier." "Saw me doing what?" "You gave your dinner to one of the hotel workers." Daniel looked surprised. "Earlier," he had noticed a young kitchen worker sitting alone. The boy had missed his meal because he had been working. Daniel had quietly given him the sandwich he had brought from home. It was nothing special. Just a small act of kindness. But Victoria had seen it. "You didn't know anyone was watching," she said. "That's why I trust you." Daniel looked at her. "Why do you need a fake fiancé?" Victoria glanced toward her uncle. "Because tonight, I want him to stop treating me like I'm broken." Daniel understood. He had seen that kind of judgment before. People often looked at single parents with pity. They assumed something was wrong with them. They judged people who had less money. They judged people who lived differently. Daniel knew what it felt like to be looked down upon. So he nodded. "Okay." Victoria smiled with relief. For the rest of the evening, Daniel stayed beside her. He didn't pretend to be rich. He didn't pretend to be someone else. He simply treated Victoria with respect. When someone asked how they met, Daniel smiled and said, "She has a good heart." Victoria looked at him in surprise. Nobody had said that to her in a long time. Later, she asked him quietly, "Why did you say that?" "Because I believe it." "But you don't even know me." Daniel smiled. "I know what it looks like when someone is hurting and pretending they're not." Victoria became silent. Those words touched something inside her. As the evening continued, Daniel learned that Victoria's birthday was not really a celebration. Her parents were gone. She had spent most of her life trying to prove herself. She had built a company from nothing, but she had never found many people she could truly trust. Daniel listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer advice. He simply listened. And for Victoria, that was more valuable than any expensive gift. Near the end of the party, Richard approached them again. "So," he said coldly, "how much is this man paying you to pretend?" The room went silent. Daniel's face turned serious. Victoria stepped forward. But before she could speak, Daniel calmly said, "Nobody is paying me." Richard laughed. "Then why would a man like you stand beside a woman like her?" Daniel looked at Victoria. Then he looked back at Richard. "Because she asked for help." Richard rolled his eyes. "People like you don't belong in this world." Daniel didn't become angry. He simply said, "Maybe not in your world." Then he added, "But I believe everyone belongs somewhere they are treated with kindness." The room became completely silent. Victoria looked at Daniel. She had expected him to pretend to be her fiancé. She had not expected him to defend her. Then something even more surprising happened. Victoria turned toward the guests. "Daniel is right." Everyone looked at her. She took a deep breath. "Tonight, I invited hundreds of people to celebrate my birthday. But the person who showed me the most kindness was the man who came here to serve us." Daniel looked uncomfortable. Victoria continued. "He gave his own food to someone who was hungry. He listened when nobody else did. And when I needed someone to stand beside me, he did it without asking for money." Her voice became emotional. "That is the kind of person I want in my life." Daniel didn't know what to say. Victoria turned to him. "I don't mean as a fake fiancé." Daniel smiled. "I know." She smiled back. "Then maybe we can start with friendship." Daniel nodded. "That sounds good." A few weeks later, Victoria visited Daniel's small home. She met Lily. The little girl immediately showed Victoria her drawings. Victoria sat on the floor and listened to every story Lily wanted to tell. Daniel watched from the kitchen. For the first time in years, he saw his daughter laughing with someone who genuinely cared. Victoria never forgot Daniel's kindness. But she didn't simply give him money. Instead, she offered him something better. She offered him a job managing community programs at her company. A job that allowed him to work regular hours and spend more time with Lily. Daniel accepted. Years later, Daniel still remembered that birthday party. He remembered walking into the ballroom as a tired waiter. He remembered Victoria grabbing his arm and asking him to pretend to be her fiancé. But the greatest thing that happened that night wasn't a romance. It was something much more powerful. Two lonely people discovered that kindness could build a bridge between two completely different worlds. Daniel taught Victoria that being rich did not mean you had to be alone. Victoria taught Daniel that sometimes one small act of kindness could open a door you never knew existed. And Lily learned something too. She learned that her father's kindness had never been wasted. Because kindness is often like a seed. You may plant it without knowing where it will grow. You may give someone a smile, a meal, a listening ear, or simply a little respect. You may think it is nothing. But to someone who is hurting, it could mean everything. So, the next time you see someone who looks tired, lonely, or forgotten, remember Daniel. You don't need to be rich to change someone's life. You don't need power. You don't need a perfect life. Sometimes, all you need is a kind heart and the courage to care. Because one small act of kindness can change a person's entire day. And sometimes, it can change their entire life.